to you, Lord.
Right away, God's Spirit made Jesus go into the desert. He stayed there for 40 days while Satan tested him. Jesus was with the wild animals, but angels took care of them. After John was arrested, Jesus went to Galilee and told the good news that comes from God. He said, "The time has come. God's kingdom will soon be here. Turn back to God and believe the good news." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you.
How you doing there, Hugo? How's your little cub? And the little cub with the little cub? My Lord, I never saw that little one there before. What's the little cub's name? Anybody know? What's its name? Is just Junie? His name is Junie? Judy. It's a Judy. And what's the littlest one's name? John. The little one's name is John, and the slightly bigger one's name is Judy. And then there's Hugo. Is that right? Is that right, everybody? I don't know either. I know Hugo. Judy, do you know who the others are? Judy and and John. This is Judy, and this is John. You know, I was a Cub Scout when I was littler, smaller, and a Boy Scout, but I was a Cub Scout. So Cubs always kind of special to me. So, Hugo, how things going? How's this mask working for you? Is it okay? What? Yeah, I'm going to tell them. Don't worry. Do you want to tell them the story? You want me to tell them the story? Well, I'll tell them the way you told me. All right? Okay. Thank you. Hugo's a good bear, aren't you, Hugo? So here's the story Hugo wanted me to tell you. It's a story of a Chinese lady way, long time ago in China. And it seemed that she lived in this village that wasn't too far from a river. And every day she would take a long pole and she would attach 2 buckets to the pole. One side had one bucket and the other side had the other bucket. The one bucket had a crack in it. And the other bucket had no flaws at all. And she'd go down to the river every single day and fill both buckets up with water and put the buckets in the pole on her shoulder and walk back up the path, up to her home, and put the buckets down and empty the water into the containers in the home. Now, of course, because the bucket with the crack in it was leaking water out of it, it only had half the water in it, while the bucket that was perfect, had no flaws, had a full amount of water. And every day she'd do the same thing, and after a couple of years, the good bucket, the full bucket, began to really feel proud about itself. And it told the old lady, you know, every day I serve you and your family, and I'm always bringing the full amount of water. I'm really, really happy with myself. Meanwhile, the bucket with the crack in it, hearing what the other bucket said, began to feel really bad, kind of ashamed of itself. And one day, as the old lady was down at the river putting the water into the buckets, the cracked bucket said to the old lady, "You know what?" It said, "I really feel bad. I'm supposed to give you water, and every time I can only give you about half the water I'm supposed to give you. I'm sorry. I'm ashamed of myself." And the old lady looked at the cracked bucket and said, "Now don't feel bad about yourself. Do you know what? I want you to look," she said, "at the side of the path, that what's there as we go up towards my house." And the cracked bucket looked down, and it saw this beautiful row of flowers all the way up to the house. And the old lady said, "Do you see those flowers on the side of the road where over which you hang? Look on the other side. Are there any flowers over there?" And the cracked bucket said, "No. How come?" "Well," she said, "every springtime I plant little flower seeds in that path. And because water leaks out of your bucket, you're able to water the seeds on that path, and you create, with God's help, the flowers. And every year I have these beautiful flowers for my family, so that when we have dinner, I dress up the table with flowers, and it makes things very joyful and happy for people." And the cracked bucket thought to itself, "Wow, I helped do that?" And the old lady said, "You sure did. Thank God for your crack." And it made the cracked bucket realize that even its flaws can be used for a bigger purpose. The story of life is always about the goodness we are capable of, and even the flaws that we are responsible for. Both go hand in hand in God's vision, not ours. We just see the cracks. But God, who is over all and in all, God takes all what's in us, good and bad, and He's able to make something beautiful even out of our flaws. That's what Lent is about. Lent is meant to help us not beat ourselves up for the flaws in our hearts, the sins, the mistakes, the inabilities we have. We're not supposed to be there browbeating ourselves or browbeating each other. What we're supposed to be about is helping each other see the bigger vision of God, who can even take our sinfulness and make something beautiful out of it. Let me give you a simple little example of this from my own life. When I was a kid in school, I remember my mother visiting the school one day, and she said, she was talking to the principal, and I could still see her at the top of the stairs going into the school, my mother standing at the door on the other side of it, and the principal standing next to her. And as I walked up the stairs, I saw my mother, and the two of them were talking. And later on, my mother said, "You know, I had to see the principal today because you're not doing well in school." And I never did. And my mother said, "The principal said to me, you know," she said, "your son is an average student, but he doesn't apply himself. He's lazy." And I always remembered that. I'm average, but I'm lazy. So over the years, that's how I thought about myself. Not capable of much, but I better work hard, because if I don't, the little I can do, I won't be able to do. So I have to overcome my laziness. And I'd work hard at overcoming my laziness, but it never seemed to work. I still got bad grades. And then when I got into the seminary, which is after college, I created a friendship with somebody, and this guy told me, "I don't think you're average. I think you can do a lot more than an average person." And he taught me to have more respect for myself. And he encouraged me by helping me learn how to learn, so that when I got out of the seminary, I went and taught in a school. And I would go, when I went into a classroom, I would see students, and some of them were doing well and others weren't. But you know what my flaw, my laziness, and my identification as just an average person did for me? It made me sensitive to the students who struggled. To this day, I'm sensitive to people who struggle with themselves. And it's all because of my flaws that God helped me use for a bigger purpose, to help those who don't know how to learn, like my friend helped me. We don't need to bury our flaws below the surface of our lives. We need to acknowledge them so that God can use them for something bigger, something in His plan, not ours. I never knew what I could do with my flaws until I started doing it. But it's because of what God showed me through my friend, through my mother, through that principle, and through life. Lent is about seeing the kingdom, as Jesus says. He healed creation. That's what the story in Mark is about. He comes to heal the creation. He was with wild animals, the scripture says. The unbroken, the fragmented parts of life, where people can hurt, where animals hurt each other. And he came to bring a bigger vision, a broader perspective. And he died to show us that broader perspective by rising to reveal that all of life has a purpose. And we are part of that purpose. So let's let him do that for us this morning. And even Hugo, who told me this little story, so I shared it with you.